We're on our way to Little Village to check out one of the best carnitas spots in Chicago, Uruapan. If you know, you know. Originally located on 18th in Pilsen, this is our newest location. I was talking to my boy Marcos. He's gonna set us up nicely with some great grub and get a couple words on the legendary spot.
I'm Marcos Carvajal, second generation owner of Carnitas Uruapan. We are a family-owned neighborhood restaurant. In 1969, my dad came to Chicago from Uruapan, Michoacan. He was a butcher by trade and grew up in our family butcher shop. It was owned by like an uncle, and my grandfather helped out as well. And at that time, the Mexican community in Chicago was very, very small. We're talking that 1700th block of 18th Street still had the only Mexican supermarket in the city of Chicago. It was across the street. It's not open anymore, but it was opened by another immigrant from Michoacan who my dad knew, who he befriended. And we're talking like the first store that literally brought in like chiles, aguacates, you know, just the basics to make our food. So it was a hub, and people were coming there from other parts of town on the weekends to do their weekly shopping. And so my dad thought, you know, what better place than where people are already, you know, meeting up every weekend and going to get their food products. And Carnitas has always been a weekend specialty. The origins of the dish go pretty far back, and it's kind of a combination of old world and new world cooking techniques. Adrian is searing entire pieces of pork shoulder right there. So what he's doing is taking the pork shoulder that's already been trimmed out and flash frying it for probably 3 to 4, maybe 5 minutes, until you get a nice golden brown color on the outside. What you're looking for that to have is essentially a color kind of like this, where it's got a nice texture to it, it's nice and brown, and it locks in all the juices, which is gonna allow us to cook it, but have it not become overly dry. The Spaniards brought pork to Mexico, and you know, Mexicans developed tortillas. So there's a French cooking technique called confit, where you cook an animal in its own fat. That technique was brought over. You know, Mexican cooks figured out that, you know, pork with it rendered and cooked in its own fat in a giant caso made out of copper, which is made in a town in Michoacan called Santa Clara del Cobre, is the town where all the copper is made. You know, Michoacan also became like a very heavy area for pork farming. So all those elements are there, and Michoacan became kind of the birthplace of carnitas. So we got our friends Gil and Cesar here, and what they're doing is they are taking pork skin that was already cooked for about 8 hours yesterday, was left overnight, and what started originally as, you know, big thick pieces of skin has been cooked down into this, which is called sancochado, which is pieces of pork skin where all the fat has been rendered out of it and all the oil has been extracted. The byproduct of doing this is all of that manteca that's right there. So that's how we create the oil that we're gonna use for cooking carnitas. It's very different from most Mexican food because you're not buying it by the taco, you're buying it by the pound. So it's meant to be bought, you know, big tray in bulk. It's reasonable, and it's great to feed a big 15 or 20 person family, you know, multiple families that get together on a Sunday and you have it at home. And that's essentially what was happening during COVID. You know, people were still meeting, but they were meeting, you know, at home and having these you know, gatherings among themselves and not really going out and dining out. So we did, you know, it wasn't the best time, but we were uniquely positioned, you know, to ride out that storm. This restaurant for us is a flagship, and it's on a very well-known, kind of iconic commercial corridor that, ironically enough, has become its own, you know, tourist hub over the years. There's like the traditional Michigan Avenue, you know, where you get mainstream tourism, and then there's La Villita, 26th Street, where you get Mexican people from all over the Midwest that are in smaller communities where, you know, there might be 1 or 2 Mexican supermarkets, but, you know, there's not a place that sells birria specifically, there's not a place that sells carnitas, there's not a great place for tacos al pastor, you know, there's no like brands, there's just, you know, the bare bones of a Mexican community. And when those people come here, they come buy soccer jerseys, you know, for Chivas, for America that they can't get out there. They come buy quinceañera dresses, and they buy tequila, like at Moreno's Liquors. They buy mezcal that they can't find anywhere else. And of course, they come to buy, you know, carnitas and birria and all those like regional Mexican specialty dishes that you might not find in a smaller Mexican community. This is a tortilla machine. It comes from San Luis Potosí, and it is just like the machines that you would find like at a neighborhood, like street corner tortilleria in Mexico, which are really, really common in Mexico. Over there, you don't necessarily buy your tortillas from a grocery store. All the neighborhoods, like on the inner blocks, probably have a little tortilleria, family owned, and they have a machine that's typically something like this, sometimes a little bigger, but mostly like this, and just constantly runs fresh tortillas. So, and people, literally, you see them at El Milagro, you know, come here from out of state, and in their car they'll have like 3 cases of tortillas to take back because they just can't get the same quality tortillas, you know, in Iowa, in Michigan, or in Minnesota. So Martin here is making you a Carnitas Especial, which is a lunch special, which has a half pound of carnitas. And right now he is chopping up what we call buche, which is the pork stomach. Then he's moving on to, see that's the cueritos, that's the skin. So he's gonna give you a little sample of every different cut that we sell. Then he's grabbing a piece of shoulder. That's, you know, the large pieces of shoulder. See how it was like a whole piece? It's nice and juicy. You see the little crust on the outside, and then it's tender on the inside. So our lunch special has a little piece of chicharrón on the side, just a little sampler. I gave you guys potato and cheese and a potato and chorizo, taco dorado. And then our refried beans are actually refried in the same manteca that we make the chicharrón in. So they have like a little bit of that chicharrón taste on there as well. Noel here is showing you how you make a proper carnitas taco. So he's doing double tortilla because he's gonna make a big one. And he's gonna make a taco surtido. So he's gonna grab a little bit of the shoulder, a little bit of the skin, and a little bit of the pork belly, and kind of mix just a little bit of everything in there.
This is the golden stuff right here.
Yeah, that adds a lot of flavor and texture to your taco, but it's a little overwhelming if you have it by itself. And then it's gonna put a little bit of lime in there because you want to cut the acidity of the lime. Really helps with the pork. And it's totally preference. Like some people like cilantro and cebolla, some people don't. And then the salsa.
What would you recommend?
I think the Clásicas is, yeah, that's the one we've been serving forever. It's our original recipe. It's a little bit of jalapeno, tomato, and the salsa has a little bit of vinegar from the jalapenos, so it's meant to kind of cut through the acidity of the salsa, cuts through the fattiness of the pork.
Yeah, it smells amazing.
It's one of those rare businesses that, you know, through my parents' hard work in just, you know, making it a tradition, right? The only way you make a tradition is by doing it well for a really long time for multiple generations of people. So my parents did that for 40 years. I took it over, you know, 10, 11 years ago, and I had this tremendous, you know, positive, momentum that they created. And when you have that and you continue to, you know, guide it and shape it, you know, it can become, you know, just synonymous with a community and become essentially ingrained into the culture of a neighborhood and a people. So I think originally, you know, our neighborhood in Pilsen, you know, was a center of culture. I think now that's expanded as the diaspora of the Mexican community has happened, and people are south and west and moving on and pursuing, you know, other opportunities and living other places and looking for, you know, better outcomes, better schools, all kinds of things. I think, they take a little bit of that with them, so I want to grow with that. And I do think, over time, places can become the part of the culture.